Hello everyone. Today we're going to have a go at making a protection um, amulet or craft item called an Ekguzkilore. It comes from the Basque area of the Iberian Peninsula, which covers northern Spain and parts of the southern Pyrenees and southern France, the Navarre region. Um, and the Ekguzkilore is a representation of the sun. People hang them on their doors to protect their houses, but you can hang them anywhere you like. Now, I'll start by saying if you're in the right frequency, if you are in love, if you're operating from a heart center, and if you're super confident, you don't need protection. You don't need any protection for anything because, firstly, no one's going to come near you from an energetic point of view if you are resonating in a really high frequency because they just simply can't interact with you if they're lower vibrational. But also, if you believe that you cannot be infiltrated energetically, you won't be. However, it's very, very difficult as an individual to 100% of the time be in that state because we're human, right? So, if you're having an emotional day, if you have an emotional reaction to something that perhaps lowers your frequency, if you just want to protect your house when you go out, you can make one of these. Now, the Ekguzkilore, which is what this is based on, means sunflower in the Basque language, and it's an ancient symbol of protection that represents the goddess Mari, which is a Basque goddess, which I'm going to tell you about while we're making it. So I'll start off by telling you a little bit about the Basque culture. The Basque culture the Basque language is the oldest European language that's still in use today. It has no linguistic links to any modern or ancient European languages that we are aware of. Latin, ancient Greek, nothing. It is older and it is unique. Now, what is interesting about Basque is that some of their cultural points, sort of dancing, scarves and bells, wearing white with crossbands across, are very, very similar to British folklorists, Morris dancers, traditional things like that. So there are echoes of Basque culture in British culture. And there's only one modern language that is still used today that shares any words with Basque, and that is Irish Gaelic. And the only ancient language that we have deciphered that shares some words with Basque is ancient Egyptian. There's some words in Egyptian Coptic that is still used today, which is the closest modern language to ancient Egyptian that is still used. It's actually used to give archaeologists an idea of how ancient Egyptian was pronounced and sounded, because it's the only language that reflects similar words and grammar and uses of pronunciation. And Proto-Basque has words that are shared with Coptic, Egyptian Coptic, and therefore ancient Egyptian. So there's some debate amongst people like me and people who are interested in anthropology and the origins of language about whether Basque might be Atlantean, or at least to be descended from the language that they may have used in Atlantis. Now, we were talking the other day about Etruscans, and we haven't deciphered the Etruscan language. There's very few examples left. So we don't know how it sounded or what words, but I'd make a bet. I'd make a wager that when it does get deciphered, that it shares words with Proto-Basque, Irish Gaelic, and Egyptian Coptic. I wonder what the link is. Probably Atlantis. So what you need to make this protection thing is we're going to use a sunflower. Okay, so this is one that I had on a bouquet that's gone over. So I've just cut the stalk off and I've got the head. Okay, but you can use any sunflower, that you've grown in your garden. Don't pick a fresh one. Wait till they've gone a bit. Don't waste a beautiful fresh flower. Now, in the Basque culture, they don't use sunflowers to make these. Even though Ekguzkilore means sunflower, in the Basque culture, that's actually a cardine thistle. However, that they open up and then dry. And inside, they look like they've got a sun with rays. And then they have normal thistle type spiky leaves around the outside. However, the cardine thistle that they use is now an endangered species. It is farmed in parts of the Basque region in order to make these protection things. However, they're very difficult to get hold of, and I wouldn't want to use an endangered species to make one. So we're going to make one today with a sunflower and some thistle leaves, but it will end up looking the same. So I would recommend that you wear big, thick, these are my gardening gloves, big, thick gloves for this, okay? Because the thistle leaves we're going to use look like this. They're just off, a wild thistle. Any wild thistle, as long as they're quite long like that, they will do the job. But use gloves because they're very spiky and I don't want you to hurt yourself. You also need some pins. The bobble-headed ones are good to use because they're a bit easier to use with gloves on, and they don't disappear inside the back of the sunflower head. So they sort of are a bit easier to manage. And you also need a piece of ribbon. Any piece of ribbon will do. So while I am talking to you about making this, I'm going to tell you about the legend of Mari, Mary, also known as the Lady of Anboto. So this is a supreme goddess in Basque culture, and she's the personification of the Mother Earth in ancient Basque mythology. And some of you will be very interested to hear about her. Obviously, Basque culture is more ancient than the ancient civilizations that we know. So is she an even older goddess than we're aware of? Is she older than the Greek Titans? Is she older than the Nephilim? I don't know, but it's a very interesting idea, isn't it? So what you need to do first is take your sunflower head and just pull the petals off. This is why it's like, don't use a fresh one because it's, what a waste. Right, so what I've got here now is a sunflower. It still looks sunny enough to be one of these protection charms. Sun-like enough, but it has no petals on, and you've got the back like that. Pick it when the petals have gone a bit, but it's still quite fresh at the back because you don't want it to be moldy and you don't want it to be too dry because you're going to dry it afterwards. Okay. So what you need now is to put your gloves on. What I like to do is to have one glove on one hand for handling the thistle leaves and one hand normal for doing the pins. So you need to turn this over now. So you're working on the back, okay? And you're going to get your thistle leaves. I like to put the green side facing outwards. So I'm looking at the backs of both the sunflower and the backs of the leaves so that the greener edge is facing outwards. But you can have them the other way if you prefer the silver side, it doesn't matter. And any large thistle leaf will do. And then you're going to take your pin and you're just going to push the pin through the back of the thistle leaf, into the back of the sunflower, okay? And just make sure, and you see that helps it not disappear, and just make sure that your pin isn't sticking through out the other side because you don't want to hurt yourself. And you can do it at a slight angle if you've got a slightly slimmer sunflower. So you're then going to go all the way around with your thistle leaves, doing the same thing again and again and again, so that you have a sun-like creation. Now you can go around once being a bit conservative with them, and then you can go back and go over again. So just in case you've not got enough. Mine are foraged from outside my house, where I've got some lovely purple Scottish thistles growing, giant thistles. It doesn't really matter if it's messy on the back because it's you're not going to see it. So there you go. You see, there we are. That's what's happening there. And so I'm just going to go round like that. It's best to do this on a tray or have laid out some newspaper or something, because the sunflower, if it's not dried, if it's a fresh one like this, which is preferred, can sometimes shed pollen or whatnot. So you just want to, if you don't want it everywhere, you need to just do that. Now, while I'm doing this, you don't want to watch me pinning things into the back of a sunflower. I'm going to tell you about the legend of Mari. So Mari, the Basque mother goddess, she's very fierce and independent. She lives alone in a cave, and she's a neutral ruler. So she commands weather and justice and expects deep reverence. But she, just like the Basque language, there is no, even though she's a female, there's like a gender neutral. She's like, she's a being that doesn't have a gender, even though we call her a goddess. So I think it's just evolved that way. But I think there was an understanding before that our eternal souls or certain celestial beings don't actually have a gender. The Basque language doesn't have gender-based grammar either. There's not masculine and feminine words in the language like you get in French, or Polish and things like that. There's nothing like that, which is interesting. And she lives in caverns beneath the mountains in Basque country. And she lives in, well, the most famous cave that she's said to live in, which is interesting because she's underground. And the Tuatha De Danann went underground, didn't they? The ancient peoples of Ireland went underground as well. So there's another similarity there of her being an underground goddess. And she lives in the cave of Anaborto, but under all mountains in the region and all caves. And according to legend, she rotates her dwelling every 7 years. And the number 7 is a sacred number in Vedic Indian culture, which is another culture that may also be at least contemporary with Atlantis. So there's lots of interesting similarities here. And she, the mountain she currently occupies, dictates the whole region's weather, apparently. So if she's in, let me get the mountains names right. If she's in Mount Anaboto, she brings heavy and life-giving rain. If she's in Mount Alona, she brings severe drought. And if she's in Mountain Peliligor or something, she guarantees abundant and prosperous harvests. So there's a cyclical nature to her as well, but on a 7-year basis. And she is said, when humans spot her, to look like a beautiful woman dressed in a red dress or a green dress. And again, that has got comparisons to other European cultures in the sense of, we've got our Father Christmas legends, haven't we? That either dress in red or green, the Green Man, there's sort of echoes even in our modern folkloric beliefs of these very ancient proto-European cultures. And but she's a shapeshifter, which is like so many indigenous cultures, have shape-shifting deities, don't they? Loki is one, isn't he? And she travels across the Basque skies in a roaring crescent of fire, or like a thunderbolt or a whirlwind or a woman riding on a giant ram in the clouds. And this again has echoes of Vedic culture with the sort of an angelic law with the chariots of the angels and flying through the air, and and even Mayan culture as well. So I think this Basque goddess is super, super ancient. I think she's pre-Younger Dryas. She's older than 11 or 12,000 years old, I think. And she has a husband. Now, what's his name? I can tell you. His name is Sugar or Meiju. And he, interestingly, is a serpent or dragon associated with thunder and celestial fire. So sort of comets and stars falling from the sky and this sort of thing. But again, it's really interesting parallels to the Naga and things like that in Vedic culture and in ancient Chinese culture, and the dragons of the British Isles. So there's all these links that I think predate our languages. So yeah, there's lots of tantalizing threads as to where we got our beliefs from. But I think Basque is your best chance of getting as close to the ancient world and the Atlantean world as possible, because it's still lived by people. And it's hardly changed. And it's the closest we'll get to the ancient beliefs of our ancestors, I think. So Mari and Meiju or Sugar have 2 sons that fight, just like Cain and Abel, and they represent the dual forces of the world. So there's Atabari, who is kind and cooperative and a good son, and then there is Mikilats, who is destructive and selfish and evil. And again, we've got the kind of good cop, bad cop that we get with Kalimar, and who else has good and bad presentations, or many goddesses, angels of the light, fallen angels. There's that light and dark, yin and yang thing. Interestingly, like many beings that I come to work with in my practice, Mari doesn't demand worship or religious devotion, which I think, as a modern religious belief, albeit one that has been passed down probably from the oldest living culture that still exists, is much more like what beings themselves say. You know, they don't like religion. Religious figures, ascended masters, they don't want to be worshipped. They just want to be respected. And that's what Mari brings to us. Now, I'm going to show you this quickly. I've got petals everywhere. So I've not got quite enough. So you can do it like that. They're a bit floppy because they're still fresh. You can do it like that, and you can carry on and fill it out and fill it out and fill it out. And then what you need to do is you need to pin on the back of it a ribbon before it dries. Otherwise, it won't stay in. So if you just I'm going to take my glove off. If you get your ribbon and you fold it over at the bottom like that, fold it over, and then just pin it to the back. You might need a couple of pins just to stop it falling out, because obviously it's got to take the weight of it, although it will be lighter once it's dry. So pin it into the back of your sunflower head. Okay, so it then looks like that. You see, it's a bit floppy, but it's not going to be when it's done. And then you lay it flat and you position your thistle leaves so that they're flat, and then you leave it to dry. You can leave it to dry in the sun. That will give it a lovely amount of energy. Or you can leave it to dry anywhere where there's not moisture. You know, don't leave it in the kitchen or by a shower or anything like that, because it will go moldy. And then once it's dry, my glove's in there. Once it's dry and it's flat, you can then hang it up on your door or any entranceway, and it will protect you. Which is, you know, lovely and ancient. This is an ancient practice. This is pre Ice Age. So this is as ancient protection charm as you're going to get. So I was telling you about Mari not wanting religious devotion, and instead she just wants you to be good people. She demands like a moral code and respect. She just wants you not to be awful, which I think is really, really nice, because it's just, you know, it's quite human, isn't it? She doesn't like people who lie or steal or who are prideful or arrogant, or someone who says they're going to do something and then breaks their oath, breaks their word. Now, this is really like the Ten Commandments, isn't it? So, you know, many more modern religions, even Abrahamic religions, have echoes of this more global, ancient belief system. And again, you know, you see this in things like Sushumna Kriya Yoga, which is an ancient Kriya Vedic practice of meditation and living in a heart-centered, peaceful way. And there is part of that practice is reflecting at the end of the day where you've let yourself down in all sorts of ways in your conduct, and identifying it and thinking how you could do better not next time. So there's still even this echo of this being a morally nice person, a good person. And but interestingly, her kind of righteous justice is reciprocity, not punitive. So where there's no smiting, you know, they're like an Abrahamic God. She doesn't come in and smite you. She's not going to, big hand's not going to come out the sky and, you know, zap you with lightning. But it's very much like Jesus's teaching, where he says, do unto others as you would like to be done. Um, and basically, if you do something to someone, you get it back. You get it sent back to you by Mari. So she says, what is mine to me and what is to others to others. So if you steal something, she will disappear your loot and make sure you're poorer than before, that something happens and you're poorer than before. So you get stolen from if you steal. By the universe, if you see what I mean. And if you're like an arrogant and horrible landowner, you would lose your land, or you would your crop would be spoiled or something like that. But just as she sort of works on a reciprocity way of punishment for people, she also rewards really honest and nice people. So, which is what we see in karmic religions. Sikh culture, Hinduism, Buddhist culture, in that if you are kind and considerate and preserve the balance of nature and keep yourself well and help keep others well and respect your body and respect others, then good things happen around you. And that is very, very similar to our more modern beliefs of ascension and frequency and vibration, and of understanding that if we're living in a certain dimensional frequency, that is also what we will meet, because everything is a mirror. So there's echoes again of this inner knowing that we have in our modern practice that is potentially more ancient than what we consider to be ancient cultures, the most ancient, into mythological, and beyond. And so there's this etiquette for when you're visiting Mari. So if you find yourselves in the mountains of northern Spain or southern France, the Pyrenees, you have to observe strict rules if you want to enter her cave. So remember this if you're going to Basque country. You have to address her using her a formal Basque greeting. So you would say hi, which is where hi from, or zu, and then Mari. You must never sit down in her presence like a true queen, even if she offers you a seat. Now, isn't this like our fairy law, which is from Ireland, where you must never eat the food, even if you're offered it? So it's interesting, there's another comparison there to ancient Irish culture as well. And you must exit the cave in exactly the same way you entered. So if you walked in forward, you must back out of the cave facing her, just like when you're in a monarch's presence. And I wonder if this belief, this respect, comes from Basque culture, comes from a much more ancient culture that we've long forgotten but deeply know. So there you go. There is my Ekguzkilore, which I will be drying and then hanging from my door. I hope you have enjoyed making that with me. A little bit of Basque culture and probably a little bit of Atlantean, Lemurian folklore and tradition as well, I think. And I hope you've learned a lot about the goddess Mari, and we'll maybe find some more out about her, and maybe we'll do some more making and doing another time. So maybe not. We'll see how this one turns out. Anyway, have a lovely day. Bye bye.